Good morning. I am Sireesha Mandava, CIO of Greenpath Financial Wellness.
And I'm Brad Johnson. I'm the Software Development Manager at Greenpath Financial Wellness. We're here today just to share with you our journey over the last year and a half and how we've really optimized a lot of our internal processes and tools to help us move faster.
Okay. So believe it or not, we have more in common than you think. And just to demonstrate that, I thought we will do a small exercise. This is a session before lunch. You will appreciate being engaged and stretching. So if you don't mind, would you stand up? Thank you. So this is how we're going to demonstrate how much we have in common. We are going to state a few statements. If that is true for you or your company, sit down as soon as you hear it. That's all. Simple. Okay. So if any of you have a developer position open for more than 2 months, sit down.
If any of you have just one developer who is seemingly the only person who knows what your legacy code base does, sit down. It's okay.
If you have no time to go beyond MVP, sit down.
Okay. If your backlog is growing faster than you can deliver features in a single sprint, or obviously as the sprints move on, sit down.
Oh no, we had 10 questions.
I want to reorder them.
We actually did reorder. So obviously the other questions we had are if you had a project to estimate without enough detail, right? You have more projects than you can handle.
Projects getting delayed from initial estimates, legacy systems that are becoming a nightmare to support.
Yeah, we would sit down over and over again. So definitely we have a lot in common. And I'm so glad you came here to share our journey. By no means we're experts, so I want to put that out there first. A year ago when we started this journey, we didn't even know what we were going to do. We just said we are going to think outside of the box, go with an opportunity mindset, and go after it. And a year later, we were putting this presentation together and the formula was clear. And that's what we are here to share. But before that, we want to introduce Greenpath Financial Wellness. We are a national nonprofit who is focused on helping people to live financially healthy lives. We offer education, counseling, and debt management plans to do that. We are 530 colleagues and more in over 40 offices nationwide, helping over 200,000 people who call us and help them pay off about $250 million in debt every year. So the scale you can see, but our dreams are bigger. Our big, hairy, audacious goal, our vision, is to remix the American dream so it works for everyone. It is pretty big. It drives us. It's our vision. But it also drives our everyday actions.
So that's a big goal, right? We kind of have a lot of different things that we can do, but at the core, we really need to figure out and find new ways to reach and serve more people. So whether that be through outreach, efficiency when it comes to our frontline staff, and finding more service offerings, right? Finance is a big space. There's a lot of different challenges to solve, even at the individual level. So finding different ways to reach and serve more people through the services we can offer them is really important. But at the heart of that comes technology. We have a very committed IT department that really understands the business, but wants to find new and innovative ways to make technology at the core of what we do and use it as a really driving factor for Greenpath success. So most of our work, most of our business initiatives, they require technology. 90% of everything we do requires some sort of technological enhancement, some sort of new improvement, and we're not alone in that endeavor. 93% of companies in the next 5 years are seeking some sort of digital transformation, and they're going to be spending trillions of dollars to do so. But what comes with that is a stumbling block of legacy applications that have poor architecture, resource constraints that are, I'm sure, not unfamiliar to any of you, and having just a combination of those factors, especially with Greenpath being a nonprofit, technology is starting to get in the way when it comes to the legacy and making it difficult to focus on the new and exciting opportunities we have ahead of us. So basically, we're stuck in a legacy gridlock. We have too much technical debt. We had a backlog that's growing out of control. And we needed to find new and innovative ways to do that without the traditional approaches of hiring new people and outsourcing. I skipped ahead, sorry.
I'm sure you all relate to the different things that Brad mentioned. So what are our options, right? So like I said, a year ago is when we started looking at, well, we can't continue to be in status quo. And really, what does it mean to be status quo, right? Maintaining a legacy application, I don't know, 15 years old, probably, part of it is 15 years old. And continuing to do that, what that means is that we won't be able to help more people. This year, Greenpath had a record year of number of people we helped. So as more and more people are coming, there is more and more processing. So I talked about the $250 million in debt that we help people pay. Those are individual transactions that the system churns every single day, sending it out to multiple creditors and doing lots of bank transactions. Now, if we don't speed up our systems, what that means is we're not going to be able to process more of those transactions, which means we can't help more people. So obviously, staying status quo is not an option. Doubling our IT budget, can you imagine, for any company? And then not for profits, it's even more difficult, and it's not the responsible thing for us to do, so we can be efficient and do more with less resources. Outsourcing all new projects, well, let's just make our team keep doing the legacy software and then let's outsource all the new ones. Well, of course, it's more money. Second is why? Why do we punish our people who are so diligent in doing all of this? Why should they be stuck in the rut? We definitely did not want to do that. And hiring more people is a multi-year project in itself. So we thought none of these are going to work for us. We really started out saying, we don't know. How might we do more with less, right? I'm sure a lot of you relate to this. And we didn't know. we were as a team, I think the one thing that we had was we were all together as a team collaboratively thinking, how do we crack this nut? So what we're presenting today is our journey looking back, how we went through this, and the formula that we found in the end. So Greenpath is very people-centered. We serve people, and human-centered design is everywhere in our Greenpath culture, and we wanted to put people at the center here. So number one is to collaborate with them. Number two is to have a motivated team there. So everything relies on that. The first and foremost thing is people, having motivated people. The second is to have a platform that will enable us to go faster. And the third is to have a trusted partner who can help us as waves of work come and go. So that's our formula, and we're going to expand a little bit more on each of those.
So the first one being people. We focused on the team that we had and made sure that it was, following the same philosophy we follow at Greenpath as a whole. People, whether it be our clients or our employees, are at the center of everything. So we looked at our team and we first analyzed our organizational structure. How were we set up? Were we laid out for success? And one of the first things we did is, instead of, as Sireesha mentioned, outsourcing the new and having our internal team focus on keeping the lights on, as we call it, we actually split our internal team. So we created a smaller team that's focused on supporting and maintaining our legacy systems, and then created a new team out of existing staff that would start to focus on the new, start to be forward thinking. Through that process, we ended up actually having to hire to kind of get back to the capacity that we were comfortable with internally. And one of the struggles we found was really finding the right people. As a lot of you sat down, as soon as we said having to spend 2 months or more hiring a developer. So we embraced this concept of remote work. Not just working from home when your kid's sick or you have somebody to come look at your furnace, but actually looking nationwide for people to join our team on a permanent basis when we're based out of Farmington Hills. At the end, we were able to find some great candidates. We onboarded our newest employee. She lives in Florida. We now have 2 employees who live some in Minnesota. We have employees on the west side of the state, and that's continuing to help us make sure we have the right people regardless of where they live. So once we've done that, obviously that comes with its own set of challenges, and we needed the right tools. So looking at things like making sure we have the right collaboration tools, not just relying on, good old-fashioned telephone. Embracing video conferencing, that was a big one for us when it came to team building and things like that. We have a lot of other tools around that. And then not only that, but making sure as an organization we have the right tools to help our people be efficient. So instead of finding people to fit tools we have, finding tools for the people we have when it comes to test automation, when it comes to software development, as Sireesha is going to talk about in a little bit, just making sure that our people choose tools that work for them and use tools that work for them. The next part is making sure our people are motivated. The biggest part there, and there's a lot of books on this topic, is making sure we understand and we share out everyone's why. Each person comes to work for a different reason. And as a team, we wanted to understand each other at that level so that when we're interacting like one-on-one or as a team, we know each individual's motivation and we can help speak to that. And then once that's understood, making sure the teams understand the why of the work they're doing. When I come to work, I want to know that the work I'm doing is helping our clients, because that's why most people at Greenpath come to work on a daily basis. We serve our clients. And so it's not just about writing this for loop or working on this database. It's about understanding why that for loop is important, why this database is important. Once we had the why settled and everyone was on the same page and we were aligned, we really worked to understand how each person works the best. So whether it be working from home flexibility, we have varying schedules that we have to deal with. So just making sure that we can align each person's individual needs with our organizational needs was very important. And then the last being appreciation. we as leaders can appreciate our individuals on a day-to-day basis, and that's fairly straightforward. Understanding individual needs is something that we make a point to do. But what we wanted to do was set up systems and communications that allow our team members to speak directly to those who use our systems, those who understand our systems, and give them the opportunity to say, hey, you know, this thing that you did over here, that really helped me. That like made my day better in this way, and allowed me to serve more of our customers directly. And that really gives our teams a reason to come to work sometimes, because they're really hearing it from the people that are actually affected by the work that they do. So lastly, and this is a little more cookie cutter, is our processes. We embraced Agile. The leadership really stepped out of the processes themselves, allowed our teams to self-organize. They've switched from Kanban to Scrum to Kanban, back and forth probably more times than last year than I can count, just because they're trying to figure out what works best for them. So giving them that empowerment and really giving them the tools to do that, it was important. They've embraced pairing and mobbing in a way that seemed radical at first, but really has increased our quality. And it seems odd to see 3-4 people working on like one very specific code base at the exact same time, but when you realize that at the end of the day, it's released without issue, and it's done almost at the same speed, and we're getting to a point that it's being done even faster, that's been a really big deal. And then just setting aside training time, not only for conferences like this, but 20% time. Making sure that they have time during their day to look at new technologies, learn new things that's going around them has been really important, and making sure that we make that a priority for them has allowed them to make it a priority for themselves.
A lot of good work, and we did it as a team. Now, motivated people do need good tools, right? They will stay motivated if we actually give them the tools and technologies that are needed to be productive. So the next one we looked at is, we do .NET, all of our applications are in that, and we are doing traditional coding, like I'm sure many of you do. So we set out on this journey to see what can we do, how can we make it faster. We did the processes and everything, but what can we do? And literally last year, this time, maybe a month before this, we didn't know the solution. But as we actually went out and looked at with open eyes what's out there, we came across low-code and no-code platforms. Anyone familiar here with those? Okay, one person, a couple. Okay, great. So we were new, skeptical, right? We don't want to jeopardize and like put all our eggs in one basket, but so we did a lot of analysis to see what's out there, looked at a lot of research. So primarily, there are no-code platforms and low-code platforms. And obviously, there's the traditional hand code that we were already doing. And these are also called rapid application development platforms, if you have actually come across that word. They've been there for a while. Even Salesforce calls themselves a low-code platform. So we did look into all of the players in there. It's a big space, and it's growing. So the biggest difference, and this is so you all have a simple snapshot of what they are, a no-code platform is something a business analyst or a process designer or somebody who knows the problem or who knows business really well can actually go in and use menu-based tools and flow charts and click buttons to make something happen really quickly, right? I have this process, it's taking too long, we need a system quickly, very easy to build those. So no code really means there's really no code. What does that mean? That means there isn't enough flexibility for us to, like, we say, what they give is not gonna fit, we need a button there, we need an API to be called right there, not that flexible there. So that's no code. And then low code is a combination of the no code and the hand code. So we can still have our microservices, API architecture, we can still have different systems that we would like to integrate, and when we don't like how the UI is, or when we don't like how a particular screen is to be, we can still code and script those things to make it work for us. So it's somewhere in between where you don't need people who have a lot of technical expertise like hand coding, but it's not necessarily for people who have no technical expertise either. This was a sweet spot for us. Greenpath is really known for promoting internally. We have people who have started in the front line, in the call center, and has worked all the way to director positions, even actually the C-level positions right now. So in that same theme, we actually have some people who moved from business side into IT. We have several who moved, and we are able to develop them as junior developers. And guess what? These junior developers can build stellar applications using our low-code platform with some training. And then they have the business process expertise. So it really worked for us that they know that, and then they're learning technology, they're really motivated, and this tool, this platform is really helpful for them. So just looking at all of the platforms, we had evaluated very carefully. We have evaluated several vendors. And remember, we are in financial services, so there are a lot of security and compliance requirements that we need to keep in mind. And we also had to look at, there are a lot of low-code platforms that are not enterprise grade. They can be like quickly, pull up something and do it, but when it comes to the enterprise requirements, there are very few. There are a handful that can actually scale up to that. So we did our evaluation and we chose our low-code platform. This is right out of their website. I'm not claiming for any of these, but the platform we chose did actually help us to speed up what we are doing, and also know that we can build complex applications with scalability.
So the last piece of the puzzle is finding the right partner. We have a small team, so being able to scale up and scale down to meet business needs was really important. It's not only about scalability, though. We needed to find a partner who really shares our values, understands our mission, and is willing to work in the same way we do. So obviously embracing Agile, understanding our needs, and giving us solutions that let us add people to our teams as we need to. Add a team if we need to for a period of time. So we did a lot of interviews, we did a lot of investigative work. We were really passionate about hopefully finding someone who was at least in part local so that we could have that face-to-face interaction. And we were able to do so and find someone who really does allow us to scale as needed. So where are we at now? We're just now wrapping up a project where we are porting an existing web application that we have to our low-code platform. We've been able to add new features and a mobile application to it at half the cost and half the time that we spent when we originally built the application. Our teams are running, very efficiently. We're able to scale up and down. We're utilizing the partner to help with these projects. And what's really exciting is, as we've alluded to, this legacy application that we have, we're at the beginning stages of actually being able to modernize it. And that's really getting us away from this scarcity mindset where we're focused on keeping the lights on and keeping the legacy applications running, and moving more into an opportunity mindset where we're really building new and we're really focusing on new ways to help serve our clients.
So tremendous results. So when we named our session, we're like, oh, that sounds cheesy, right? How we doubled the speed of software delivery without doubling our team. That sounded cheesy, but we actually looked at our results and actually better than doubling our speed. So you may be thinking, there must be some snags. Yes, we did. It was not a rosy journey. It was not perfect. We have several lessons that we learned and things that we would do differently if we did this all over again. And we wanted to share those with you if in case you're considering any of these things to pursue. Number one, we underestimated what does it mean to be in the cloud versus on-prem. Again, because of our financial services business, there are a lot of, we actually partner with 500 banks and credit unions and work with, 1,000 creditors or more in the United States. So we do have a lot of contractual requirements with big banks that limit us from doing some things, limit us on who can access our systems and how they access and things like that. So we thought, we can use it on the cloud. And then there was one line in the contract of one big bank that didn't allow us to do that. So we went through that journey, and our network administrator is sitting right here, and he went through hell and down, trying to actually get the platform up and running, and we have got it up and running. But it took a lot of months. If only we had enough information ahead of time, we would have done it much faster. So that's something to keep in mind. We really underestimated the security and compliance requirements. And some developers did not like low code. And it's not pretty, right? And like Brad said, this is something that we wanted to do as a team. We didn't want to just make a decision at the leadership level and say, here, we're going to use low code platforms. We actually included our development team in the evaluation, in finding a solution, in actually finding and approving the right vendor in the end. Everybody was involved. But there were a few who did not like the low code, and they weren't on the bus. They did not want to be on the bus, and they left, and that did leave a hole for us. But we're happy that we're on this, and everyone who's there on the bus really believes in where we are going. And I think we're a good team now, but we still grieve the loss of good developers. But there were some who didn't like that. Training on the new platform took longer. Obviously that's where I think every time a vendor tells you something, add so much more to the time, right? So the training and onboarding, we didn't add enough. It took, the vendor we chose, they had great training online and everything, but it took longer for people to understand and get into the groove of that. And last but not least, it's a platform and it's a subscription. So you have that cost. So I look at it as if you had a database running and you pay the maintenance every year, or you have it on the cloud and you pay the subscription. You have an application server, you have the subscription. This is another one like that. It is hefty, but it is very efficient, and it does a lot of things, including performance monitoring and telling us intelligence on what parts of the application is being used a lot. And the application that we talked about is an application we rolled out to our clients. We have 45,000 clients, and they access our web portal all the time. So it's a high usage application for us, for our scale. It's a high usage application, and that part is really important for us. So here are some lessons and what we would do differently. But I do want to say that it is a work in progress. We are continuing to refine our team processes. We're continuing to build our team. We're continuing to learn more about the platform. And then the partner that we chose, we're really, really happy with the partner and how our teams are integrated. So we have one Scrum team where we have 2 people from our partner and 3 people from our team are working all together. Our remote work experience, we actually did something called an Immersion week. When we as a company decided to make it flexible for our employees to work from anywhere, we actually did it in multiple parts of the company, but we did it in IT too. What that is we had everyone in the team work from home 5 consecutive days as if they were a remote worker, and it has to be 5 days. So it's not one day, and they can't change anything. They can't change a meeting because they're remote, right? Everything, work has to go as is, but they're remote. And we did something called an empathy map, where they actually document what they see, what they hear, how they feel, and then if they have any improvements or suggestions. So we had that framework, and every one of us scheduled and we wouldn't even tell our team members when we are working remotely. We did that, and we got a lot of feedback from that, and we are working on adjusting those things. And that really helped people to be empathetic to our remote workers. So when we decided to have a developer work from Florida, everybody else was very empathetic about what it means to be working from home, working remotely all the time. So we did several things like that. I think we are a work in progress. We have so much more to do and learn. But one thing we can say is that we are twice as efficient today than we were a year ago. So, what about you? What are you taking away from what we shared about our journey? We would love to hear 1 or 2 things that you're taking away from this presentation. And also, we would love to hear any suggestions. We shared some of our struggles, our journey. I'd love to hear what suggestions you have for us or any questions about our journey.
I have a question. When you moved from hand coding to low coding, did you lose some functionality or some abilities, some nuances that you couldn't accomplish with your low code solution that you would have been able to do if you hand coded?
I think Brad's better.
I think the trick there is we didn't move away from hand code. We just took some of the work that we did in hand code and moved it into low code. So we did, when we went into this, we didn't expect low code to be like a silver bullet, right? And we're replacing all our developers with BAs, which is frankly how some of them are sold. We're using it more on the UI layer and solving those problems, and then still combining that with a microservices architecture on the back end with a messaging bus and things of that nature.
First of all, thank you for sharing the lessons from your journey. I would like to find out about the low-code platform. Is it a proprietary platform? Is it something which is well known? And maybe for confidentiality in the reasons there are. You didn't mention the name of that platform.
Okay, so the question is, are low-code platforms proprietary? Are there very few? Why didn't you mention the name of the platform that you chose? So we really wanted to make this like vendor neutral. We found the vendor that we chose to be best for our needs. You may find something else. There are a lot of players in this space, so it's not niche, small, upcoming. The vendor, for example, we chose have been in business for 16 years and doing really well and having like 70% year-over-year growth. So it's not something, and that was one, remember from the keynote this morning, he said the mental model of one-way door or two-way door, right? this really, I agonized over this weeks. Is this a one-way door, right? We put our applications on this platform, and guess what? We are stuck. We're stuck with that platform. So one of our decisions of going with the vendor that we have right now is their promise to say, when we cancel the contract, that they will actually export our applications that can run on an IIS server, right, as a .NET application, that they can actually export it. That was the big tipping point for us to say yes. So it's like it's a one-way door, but you know, you have a hammer somewhere to break the door, right? so yeah, that's one of the reasons. But I'm happy to talk to you individually and share, you know, which vendors, which partners we chose. Any takeaways? Anything that you're taking from this presentation? Yes.
Did you find that your business users were wanting to get their hands on this tool and do some of their own development or anything like that?
We have not exposed it yet.
Yeah.
Because another thing I think I didn't mention, I want to mention, is it does not take away the governance that you need to have on your applications, right? It's a novel idea that's out there that you could just citizen developer, right? I mean, you could just give it to anybody in the company to do. It's good. It has a purpose, right? So if it's an innovation lab and they're trying to quickly do something so they could do a prototype, good, great, go ahead and do that. Accounting, you know, they have a manual process, they're just trying to do something, okay, good. But if you're building an application that's actually getting data that's critical to business, that needs to get into our data warehouse, that needs to get into the analytics, and that is critical, and that's already there somewhere, we did not want to give for those. So IT still has the governance for what kind of applications are going to be built on that. Maybe in future, you know, they will be our partner to augment some staff and say, okay, why don't you do this part? But we have, at this time, no plans to democratize the platform. Yes.
What were some of the security concerns that you mentioned earlier? Because I hear that a lot also, but in our case, we do RPA. Our bots have their own login, their own security roles, everything is tracked that they do. So we actually found that that's okay. Auditors are okay with that because it's just like a human would have a user ID and a login and security. So we did not run into really many security type roadblocks. Now we're also not a bank, right, or financial industry. But so could you elaborate a little bit on
Sure.
on that?
Sure. So a couple of things. I'll give you a couple of examples of security blocks. Number one is, for example, the platform has the development environment in the cloud. And it is controlled by, on AWS, controlled by the vendor because they have a shared infrastructure for development. And so one of the concerns is that like there are others actually coming into that same platform, and the control of security is actually sitting with someone outside of Greenpath, right? The second is the platform has a forge. People create all these like nice little blocks of applications and share with others. You can actually, so if we want a credit application to go through, we could actually go into the forge and pull down that code. It's already all integratable into the platform. We could pull that down and then build our own application. Now, the question there is, how do you trust who wrote that application, right? So then there are restrictions over there. And I'll give you a third one, which I mentioned how there's one line in the contract that, so Our partner is local, but also have offshore development center. So one of the lines in the contract is no offshore user will access your network. Now, what's a network is the big debate we had. Even if you put it in the cloud, it's owned by us, right? So anyway, so those are some of the constraints we had. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.